Welcome to another episode of State of Economy podcast, and the first one in the financial services space. I'm Hamsini Karthik, and today we're here to talk about a very, very interesting topic. You'd be thinking there's so much happening globally, banks falling apart, and that's what we're going to be discussing about, but not quite. We're here to talk about a topic that rocked social media spaces, that rocked a lot of banking customers over the last couple of weeks, that of our data privacy being breached. I have with me Sanjay Katkar, who's a joint managing director and chief technology officer at Quick Heal Technologies, to break down what really this whole thing about dark web is, how do people operate there, who makes money in the bargain, and as customers, what should we do to protect our data and to be safe and secure in the digital world. Thank you so much for joining in, Sanjay. There are a few things we would all like to understand from a technical person like you. And so let's break it down from the start. We fill a lot of forms. There are so many KYC procedures we go through. We share our phone numbers today pretty much with everybody, whether it's to buy a toy at a toy store, to opening a bank account, to a diagnostic center for a blood test. Our Aadhaar numbers are also sort of sought out, from hotel booking to anything related to GST, bank statements, and so on. So where does one draw the line with respect to what data we can share, what data we should not share?
The question is interesting. The point is, I don't think right now Indian consumers really have control over the data. Actually, I mean, it's very crucial. It's very critical. As you rightly pointed, we have to share our contact numbers. We have to share our Aadhaar, PAN card, and at lot many places. And means many times even we don't know whether they are going to need it or not. Actually, means, and the other point is, whoever is collecting that data really does understand the importance of protecting that data. I mean, is there a responsibility that he is taking further? That's where currently it is lacking because of lack of data privacy laws. But at the same time, as we know, world is flat. Globally, this has been taken very seriously. Data privacy laws are being implemented, and we are, like in India, we are about to do that because we have seen that data privacy laws are in discussion a lot since last couple of years. So for a consumer, I mean to say, whenever they are required to share data, they should first ask for themselves and the person who is asking for data whether that information is really needed to whatever transaction that they are doing with that person, whether it is buying a thing at the shop or whether it is asking for a bank statement or anything. If the relevant data is asked, that's okay to share. But at the same time, for example, if somebody is trying to deliver you a package from Amazon and asking for Aadhaar or PAN, it's not relevant. That is what the common sense really needs to percolate till the consumers, and then follow that. And if consumers do have rights to say no to the data. Many times when I do shopping in any of the mall or any of the shop, while billing, they first ask me my mobile number, and I just ask them, why do they need my mobile number? Is it like, what are they going to do? I just say, take my name, create the bill, give me the bill. Why do you need my phone number, or why do you need those details? So unless we question, they will not stop doing that. And you may be knowing that this data that is collected is sold or shared, and then we start getting a lot of spam calls or marketing calls. So that's where we really need to be very careful about what we are sharing with any of the authorities or any of the place, actually. Yeah.
Yes. And very often, and more so lately, we get to hear words like the dark web, people having compromise on a lot of their Aadhaar numbers, phone numbers, etc. What exactly is this dark web? Who are the ones that access it, and what do they get out of, just collecting numbers or collecting some, Aadhaar number, mobile number, or PAN number? How does the data trade really work?
So the dark web is, like, I'll say, it's a subset of a deep web. It means it's not indexed by a regular search engine, and it requires a specialized software or a configuration to access those websites, actually, or web pages which are there on the dark web. It's just like a regular internet, but it's much deeper, and it needs a specialized software to access that. And comparatively to the data that is indexed and searched by a regular search engine, this dark web is at least 10 times bigger or more than that actually. Okay. So
Who is that getting here?
so it's like, see, it's unregulated, it's not controlled, and there are no regulations. Then there are lot of illegal activities that happen over there. Means it is often associated with illegal activities such as like drug trafficking or even weapons trading or cyber criminal activities or something which we cannot legally do on a regular website. So users on dark web often communicate using like encrypted messaging services, or and even the deals happen with cryptocurrencies as a means of like doing payments so that the anonymity is maintained. And the most well-known dark web network is like, as we know, the Tor, which is very popular, which allows users to browse the internet anonymously and access hidden services. So if you want to buy a certain drug without prescription, or if you want to provide a service which is not legally appropriate, in that case they cannot create a regular website. So that's why they go to dark web. And see, even it's not like dark web is only used for illegal purposes. Many times even regular authorities or even law enforcements, intelligence agencies use dark web for regular communication for, because it's quite highly encrypted and it's like I mean to say well protected. So that makes it use, like even whistleblowers, they do make use of the dark web actually. So that's how it is. And why the dark web is popular for data sharing is, and when you start the discussion that what happens with the data, so people are on the dark web for various reasons actually, but most of the time we see that there is a data of a certain XYZ company is available for sale and all that. So again, data selling is illegal, that's why it is available on dark web. And then this data, when the buyers are also illegal, they go and buy it actually. So that's where it is. And while there are some legitimate use, but then because of anonymity and lack of regulation, it is most attractive, I mean to say, for cyber criminal activities.
Okay.
And so many times I'll say, for example, hacking tools, password crackers, cracked softwares, or even services which are not common actually. All such activities happen on dark web. And at the same time, selling of data, breach data ends up on dark web, or stolen data. That, as you said, this data is like something other parties are interested into. I mean to say, see, there can be three groups, I'll say. One is like cyber criminals who are on dark web, and they go and buy data just to monetize their attacks. I mean to say, they will go. Some cyber criminals who have stolen the data will go and sell it there, and some cyber criminals who are into doing fraud or extortion or identity theft related kind of cyber crime, they will buy that data, and this exchange happens on dark web. And if it's like I mean to say a nation state kind of intelligence agencies or cyber law enforcement, they go and just keep a watch on such data to confirm or maybe to get information about something that they are monitoring actually, or they want to have insight into what is happening in certain sector. They will go and check the dark web. So that's their way of doing the intelligence gathering actually. And if you look at the third group of users, who is like whistleblowers or activists, who are constantly monitored by certain, I mean to say, governing agencies or private organizations. So, excuse me. So they go on dark web for communicating with the other journalists or making sure that their information is not known or they are not getting tracked. So all these activities happen over the dark web actually.
How do people make money out of it? Is our data so precious? I mean, how is it monetized? How does it get monetized?
So example, if you see a botnet which collects your social media handles and passwords, or your banking credit card credentials, or any credentials, all these credentials are sold on dark web where the other cyber criminals buy them, who are very expert into like making use of that and doing the fraud. If there is a credit card data available, those there are certain countries where there are no cyber laws. Those cyber criminals in those countries use that data or credit card information to start siphoning off the money. And at the same time, there is a social media handle. Then there are different kinds of frauds that happens over the social media. So for that, those users buy the social media login passwords. So and then this is mostly used for identity theft and do the further frauds actually.
Okay. Okay. But there was a certain instance that happened in Australia a couple of years back, where there was a huge data trade that happened in the financial services space, which led to monies disappearing out of bank accounts. In India, we've not had that magnitude of a fraud or a crime yet. Is it because here we're a lot more protected, or is it also because it's just beginning to happen? I mean, it's all just about moving digital, so that level of fear we don't need to have in India yet.
So see, one is like there are a lot of frauds that already have started happening, and they happen in India as well.
Okay.
Most of it go unreported actually, and sometimes the victim do go to cyber crime activity. Does go to the cyber cell and talk about that. But nowadays the cases are going up. But as you rightly said, okay, the magnitude is not that big compared to the Western world or developed countries. But it doesn't make us believe that it's like a very well protected. Of course, there are. I'll give some credit to RBI because of their stringent policies that they have done with respect to protecting and the infrastructure and having the systems, things like chip and pin or things like password renewal. All these policies are quite stringently followed, which is still good. Certain cyber hygiene is there, but at the same time, there's a lot to do, and we can definitely improve upon further. And activities, see, there are banks like, say, bigger banks, which are like having a good amount of budget for cybersecurity, and they are spending and then doing the right things. And then there are cooperative banks as well, and there are smaller banks where these things are less protected, less taken care, and the cyber hygiene is lower. But then people are using all these banks. So that's the difference. I'll say we have seen certain banks where data protection related activities are not followed. You'll see a lot of Aadhaar cards or PAN cards scanned and kept at different machines in different places in network. They themselves don't know how many PAN cards or Aadhaar cards are scanned and saved in different pieces. So that kind of hygiene is not there in smaller banks, which is a very big risk. And if you see, in last couple of years, the biggest heist has happened on the smaller banks where they are not really properly protected and monitored as well. And that's where the heists are happening. But of course, we are seeing that cybersecurity is taken seriously nowadays. Government is spending too much in cyber awareness, which is good. But of course, there's a lot to do further.
This is more out of my own interest. Do these people who operate on the dark web, especially on the cyber financial crime side, do they end up getting a lot of money out of the trade? I mean, is it a very lucrative uninformal business to sort of pursue for people? What is the motivation there? Or is it just a satisfaction that I broke into so many people's accounts, I have so much of data with me?
No, of course, the data that earns them a lot of money actually. See, if you see, I'll talk about, we are into malware protection and antivirus. So we see what is happening. Yes. Botnets are something that collects a lot of your credentials. Now, botnet is something that is collecting your credit card number, bank number, or even username, passwords. But the author of these botnets or whoever has developed, they're not using it themselves directly. They put it for sale because they are good at just creating a malware, spreading it, and collecting the information. Now, this comes on selling on the dark web, wherein cyber criminals from say countries like Nigeria or any other these countries, or even Eastern European countries, they buy this data, and now the value for this data depends on how good is the quality of the data. For example, a credit card that is active and the amounts are there in the bank, then the data, it will fetch a much bigger value than those credit cards which are not active or lesser amount in bank. So all these things are sorted and sold by putting it in the right buckets. So high quality credit cards are sold at like $10 per card or maybe more actually, and then debit cards or credit cards, and then blank accounts, I mean lesser amount accounts are sold at lesser cost. But of course each thing has a different value. I mean, it's not like only for money that they buy, they use it for different activities. Further fraudulent activity happens using that information actually. So that's why each of these things that is there has value, and it's in bulks. When a botnet collects data and spreads across, so for example, a botnet infects 1 million computers, it's going to collect data from those PCs over the period of say a week or 2 weeks, or whenever, by the time it is detected and cleaned, that data, it goes to a central server, which is the records are in millions actually, and those millions of entries they further sort and they start selling that actually. So that's how it works. So even your SIM numbers, even your smaller things like even your Gmail account has value, because Gmail ke through then they will start doing frauds actually. Okay, because once you have the Gmail, your Gmail is given to multiple places as a login ID for certain accounts, and then you can use it for reset password. So if you have a Gmail account, compromised Gmail account, you can reset the password of that person and further take control of all his other social media activities or even banking activities. So there are, like, I mean to say, linked crimes further to each of these IDs that get sold actually.
In the financial services space, what are the 3-4 very common lapses or compromises that you have encountered so far?
In financial services, I'll say the very most important thing that I regularly see is whatever data we share with them, it's somehow comes out. I don't know. It's like apart from them, it's known to most of the other marketing guys. For example, if I share a data with a bank, then it goes to an insurance vendor, then it goes to other vendors actually. So automatically all these vendors start calling me, and I'm saying, who gave them right to share my data actually? It's like, okay, I am sharing a data with a bank, then they should be using it only for as and when it is needed, only for communicating with me and making use of that. That's all. It's like they are, in fact, they should be responsible for protecting that data, and whatever they collect, they should be taking consent from me. And whenever they are using it for certain other purpose, for example, they want to provide a wealth management services to me, now they cannot directly use it even though I am their customer. It's my right to, they need to take my consent. So all this is missing currently, and that's very crucial that I see. Okay, I'll tell protection on the other hand. Okay, whatever they are collecting, they are trying to protect it from breach. They are making sure it doesn't fall in wrong hands. All that is that I'm seeing that their efforts are at least being made. But internally, fully free-handedly using the data across the departments and maybe sometimes across or out of the organization as well happens, which is wrong, and that is something happening rampantly across different parts.
It's happening rampantly, you're saying?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. In that case, as consumers, what are very important checklists that we should adhere to at every given point in time, especially with respect to data protection, privacy in the financial services world? And here, I mean, not just banks, as you mentioned, wealth management, because that has a very high access to my banking details, my banking transaction, demat account, MF portfolios, everything. How would you want to link everything and advise the person to be careful?
Whenever sharing data, actually, it's very important that they should be asking questions. And because I do myself, and when right questions are asked, they don't ask for data which is not needed. That's what I have observed. So no matter what it is, see, even as we were discussing, wealth management services just comes to us and they keep asking, okay, आपका profiling करते हैं हम, let's do what, where all you have invested, what are the properties. I said, see, okay, you have wealth management services, you tell me your services, I'll select what to do. I'll not share what I have, where to. So they wanted to profile me, but then I know that how that data can be misused. Okay, if it is for that right purpose for my benefit, I can definitely share, but if it is not, then it's like always question mark. So I'll suggest consumers that always put a question mark in your front whenever sharing data. Is it really needed? And unless it is needed, you should not be sharing. It's very, very crucial. KYC, I agree. There are government regulations that they have to collect that data. But at the same time, nowadays, government has done a lot of good things. For example, when I'm trying to share Aadhaar or PAN, there is a process where they do send OTP and take my permission. But many of banks are not using that service. Certain financial organizations are using. When they want to use my Aadhaar, they ask for my permission, OTP comes, and then I approve for that bank, and only that
Yes.
bank receives the. This kind of mechanism is already placed by government. They need to start using, because earlier it was like everybody was sharing Aadhaar PAN card, bus कुछ भी document हो Aadhaar PAN card का xerox लगाओ. That has to stop, and that will stop only if we start asking the questions, and we have to start asking the questions. And I mean to say, consent wala means, if you look at from the banking side, they are not taking the consent. If you see, regulation tells that if somebody wants to take the data, they should take the consent from the customer, and also the consent where you're going to use it. And apart from that consent, you should not be using that data. And if the consent is given, the customer further has the right to just say no whenever he wants, actually. And that way, the softwares or data that they are using to store the data, or do whatever with that internally on the servers on multiple databases, they should have a mechanism to revert the consent in just a click of a button. That kind of mechanism should be there, because now the laws are going to give this kind of flexibility to the customers. They can anytime say, for example, I can go to Stop and say, whatever data you have about me, I want you to wipe it. I have that right, and they should have that facility internally, and they should give it through website or whatever, that they are wiping, and they should be wiping that. So that kind of control over the data, consumers are having right to do that. And of course, the providers should have that kind of facility. So only thing, that is the thing that is missing, I'll say, cybersecurity, hygiene, and all that. I'll tell everybody, keep telling that, okay, whenever I'm using any device, whenever I'm going to any social media, whatever I'm doing, make sure your device is protected, you have all the security settings on. Those tips everybody will give you. Only thing I'll tell you is, your data is precious, and try to protect it, because it's not only like marketing calls or the misuse of the data. There are fraudulent activities that happen through misuse of data. I have seen a friend of mine, he got a call from a bank that said that आपका loan का installment miss हो गया, and he said, I never took the loan. And he went to the bank, there was a loan on his name, a small two-wheeler loan, and he said, I never took that loan, I don't have that two-wheeler. And then finally, after investigation, it was realized that all his documents were used by somebody else to take the loan, take the bike, and the guy went off, actually, and the loan was on his name. Now, how could he somebody do that? Is for loan jo bhi lagta hai, like Aadhaar card, every Xerox was there inside there. I don't know how it ended up there, but now you and me know that our apna Aadhaar card and PAN card is anywhere across. It's like
Yes.
shared it at so many places, whether it is property registration, or it is uh, even property tax payment. बहुत सारी जगह पे हमने share किया है, and wherever we have shared, they really don't have that sensitivity about it should be protected, because वो किधर किधर जा सकता है. So that's very risky, and if you fall in that kind of trap, it's very difficult to, I mean to say, come out of that. I mean to say.
Is it okay to save passwords in the browsers or in the mobile phone?
Yeah, if you are doing that with something that is provided by the OS, and the standard OS is like Android, iOS, and Windows, they do have very good mechanism to store the passwords, and we can use them. But
There is
many,
no fear of it getting compromised in those cases.
I'll not say 100%, because
Okay.
there had been certain threats earlier which had cracked the password saving mechanism of OS, especially the browser extensions, which were weaker. And then gradually the OS guys have now changed it from, instead of extension, they have stored it on a other way actually. But of
Mhm.
course, there were earlier softwares which were quite weaker. These vulnerabilities come out, and then the threats start using them. But I'll recommend, if you use a good password manager, it will be much better. And instead of cloud, go for on PC password manager, I'll suggest, because cloud password managers have been compromised in last year a lot actually, and they themselves don't know whether the passwords are compromised or not actually. So that's something that is crucial. Yeah.
And a lot of us have this habit of using one password in different combinations, maybe with caps, without caps, ampersand or something like that in the front, and so on, because it's difficult to remember more than 10 passwords at any given point in time. But are we also in that case exposing ourselves to a larger vulnerability?
Of course, I mean to say, this weakness of using same password or slightly modified password across different platforms is very risky, just because the data breach related things that have happened in past last 4 5 years. Every data breach, bigger data breaches, like if you have for example a social media account, and that social media got breached, now it's not in your control, their servers got breached, and whatever was your username password was is exposed, and these kind of breaches are mostly available on dark web. And now your password and user account is there. Now hackers are quite smart, they just check the your email id is your login id, your password is there, and they'll try to use the same login id and password for other services of yours, and try to check whether it is working. And they have done it earlier as well.
Hmm.
And you can get compromised. So your Instagram password, if it is the same for your bank, you can get compromised. So this has happened earlier a lot. It's there in news. One biggest news was about Mark Zuckerberg's account getting hacked. His account got hacked because one certain point LinkedIn data was breached, and it was available on dark web. And some hacker took Mark Zuckerberg's password from LinkedIn breach available data, tried to use it on Facebook, and it worked. And he just defaced the page and just showed that how same using the same password can create a havoc actually. So that's so easy actually, and that's why we should be careful about creating passwords. And now, as you rightly said, we have 10 is very small amount. I'll say I at least have 55 60 login IDs at different places. We do have to create them because we are using so many of online services, and we cannot remember that many passwords, not even login IDs. So it's better use a password manager, create the strongest password. They do it automatically. We make sure that we have the strongest password for at least password manager, and that's all actually.
Thank you so much. I learned a lot from this.
Thank you, Hamsini.
Thank you for listening, and do stay tuned for more. We promise to come back with very interesting topics.